So I don't know if it really makes any difference.
Right.
And then the other thing that might happen is with this smoke or whatever, if they push it to the side, they're going to see it, they graduate.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
And it looks like that's the recommendation, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, we still have like, still have our picture and some of the players. So we gotta do it.
Yeah. And maybe play some early in the day.
Yeah.
Maybe play 2 o'clock start, give them a chance to at least. Remember when the baseball team played for the state title?
Oh, yeah.
We were at graduation, they dropped off at the gate and came in, and it's pretty cool. But I think the year they lost, the same thing happened too, and I don't think they made it back on time. They came back like they were going for that. Yeah. I didn't think about that, I forgot about that. Their fault.
I think they probably could pull it off without the seniors. I think it would be cool to do it.
Yeah, maybe they'll play earlier, right? That's
Yeah.
what they do. That's what somebody told me. So my possible area, somebody found it.
I mean, that's another country. University of
No, but yeah. Probably, working on that. Public graduation.
They're probably not doing it in person either now.
Oh, yeah. They have, yeah, I think they're doing it inside now. I heard they met, probably those who do all the stuff, I don't know, but I heard they met already about bringing in North. Eighth grade too, because, well, you have that, right? Oh, grade school.
Yeah, oh, no,
She's
she's
seven,
seven.
right. So the middle school class is supposed to be inside, now, sounds like it's gonna be set.
Yeah. That's a shame, that's such a nice thing. What's going on?
What's up?
Didn't let anybody.
Yeah. I wanted to get some of the snacks, they have still have them.
There's no snacks.
And stuff like that.
I had to bring my own. No, I mean.
Say a little something, is there a dog in the dog? Mr. Asia? We know Rod and Rod. All the kids are all grown up. Oh, they get dogs. We know Rod, Rod is the dog.
Where are you gonna play with the
Where's that, your place?
How are you? Good, thanks for coming.
What have you got? What is that, a Monday?
Yeah.
I'll play.
Today I feel like crap. I had to change my workouts. I won't run. It's like 300 and like the worst is like 500. No, it's legit. I mean, I was all. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Well, Darren was home for lunch yesterday, and we were sitting there, and that's when it was clear. It wasn't actually clear. It was just easy and clear. And we were like, there's a fire like here. And I had to go on Facebook to find out what we were saying. Yeah. Yeah.
see the lake.
Yes.
That's how bad it was.
A lot of the water, like the pool on it. Yeah, I know. I really hate it. The kids actually were. Ellie got all this because he's obsessed with baseball. So he got all this gear for his birthday. They get so excited to go out and play with. And I'm like, nope, you're not allowed out. Yeah. No, I couldn't do anything. Maggie, I like that. It's free. Well, I've been uncomfortable all day. I'm either freezing or. Last time we were in here was like 9 degrees. I'd much rather be cold. Right there. I want it to be sunny and 85 again. No. Living in the road.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Abington Heights School Board meeting of June 7th, 2023. Would everyone please rise and pledge the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm not sure who to ask. Can I ask for roll call?
I'll take that.
Mayor Belli, can we have roll call?
Absolutely. Mr. Abdallah.
Here.
Mr. Azar.
Here.
Mr. Fleming.
Here.
Mrs. Henderson.
Here.
Mrs. Karam.
Here.
Mr. Medensky.
Here.
Mr. Robson.
Here.
Mrs. Tierney.
Here.
Mr. Acker.
Here.
Everyone's present.
Wonderful. Can I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mr. Fleming.
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson.
Yes.
Mrs. Karam.
Yes.
Mr. Medensky.
Yes.
Mr. Robson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney.
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah.
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
9 yes.
Dr. Schaefer, time for the superintendent's report, and I understand you're going to pass the baton.
Yes, I.
Yes, I do plan to pass the baton. However, I would like to first give a shout out to somebody, and that would be Jerry Chaleski. He is a vendor that we work with and helped us some time ago, and I don't know how long ago, put the pit together, particularly the stands. And unfortunately, this past winter, we had a tree fall onto our visitor stands and did a whole lot of damage. And insurance companies were involved, and we had to contact the manufacturer of our stands, and they're located in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we heard a lot of the familiar supply chain problems, and when the spring rolled around, I started to get worried about graduation. And I was assured that Jerry would do a great job. In fact, to ensure that our students had the pit and our families in fine working order, he agreed to drive down to Knoxville, Tennessee and pick up the stands. And so that's what Jerry did. And then Jerry got back here and realized that they forgot to powder coat our stand. So Jerry drove back down to Knoxville, Tennessee. And if you look out on the pit now, it looks brand new in a section because it is. So I just want to give a shout out to one of our vendors in our Northeastern Pennsylvania community, and that's what we look for in a partner, somebody that really has a focus on children and knows what the standard of excellence is. And if all of our vendors demonstrated that level of excellence, we'd be hitting every single target. So thanks to Jerry.
Thank you very much.
So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Vitale, who will provide us with a safety presentation.
Good evening. So every year we do an Act 44 safety presentation during executive session to the board. And this year we felt that we would just want our community to know what we're focused on in regards to school safety and security. So for emergency preparedness, drills are conducted in each school every month for a fire drill, and then lockdown or non-fire drills are twice a year. So that would be shelter in place, lockdown, intruder drills, things of that nature. And then we actually held 2 dynamic entry active shooter drills with our faculty. So the first one we held at the middle school with everybody involved in all local police departments. And then the second one we held at the building level with local police departments responding with the faculty on professional development days. Instruction has been provided in the following areas to our students about anti-bullying, the emergency codes, so when we say lockdown versus intruder, what that means and what we should be doing. Safe to Say, which is our anonymous tip line if there are issues with students or adults in the school, and then the Student Assistance Program. Other emergency preparedness, all buildings have a swipe system for security, and people who have swipes are able to swipe in and out, and that is monitored here at the central office, and then people who do not have swipes have to buzz in and gain access that way. We are working on deploying radios for one mass communication system so that administrators, counselors, and crisis personnel will all have one device. So we ordered actually 107 radios for district-wide that we will all be able to communicate with each other should there be a need or an emergency. The Raptor Visitor Management System is going to be set up at some point this summer and will be up and running in each building. So any visitor that would be coming to our schools would have to put in their state-issued ID. It would run a background check, and then it would print a visitor badge with their picture along with the location that they're going to. We've talked a lot about the state police risk and vulnerability assessment. So that was conducted in the fall of 2021 by Trooper Miss Levy, and he spent one day at each school, and then he also was there in the evenings to talk about light and just how buildings are being used in the evenings. There was some delay in receiving the report, so we didn't receive the report until the middle of March last spring. And then we spent a significant amount of time last spring working with the building principals to review what is the priority list and what we could tackle. We tackled a bunch of projects last summer, and we hope to tackle more. And again, we developed a strategic plan to really address those concerns. There's a Safety and Security Committee that meets monthly. It includes District Safety and Security Coordinator, which is me, all building level administrators, local law enforcement representatives, Judge Keeler, and the District Attorney's Office. And basically what we talk about is emergency response planning, safety protocols, any concerns that we're dealing with at the building level or at the district level, planning for upcoming events, and any ongoing or emerging issues. And then they help us to really look at the annual risk and vulnerability assessment of what our district needs. I would say that since I've been here, each year our connection with local law enforcement has really, really grown. This committee now includes the local Pennsylvania State Police, Dunmore Barracks. It never did before, and Dunmore Barracks is the barracks that responds to the middle school in Newton Ransom. So we're really actually very excited about how engaged our local law enforcement is with our school district and with our administrative team. We have an all hazards plan. It was adopted in November of 2020. It's basically a comprehensive plan with specific responses to all different types of emergencies or disasters. It was a collaborative effort between the local kind of EMAs and local emergency service representatives and the district. There is a student reunification section, which is should there be a significant concern and we need to relocate our students off property, how do we reunite them with their families, and what does that look like? And we review that annually and update it. Reunification is going to be our focus for next school year. So this year, we really, really worked on the active shooter drill, what that's going to look like. Well, after the next step of that is what does reunification look like and how can we practice that so that in any situation, so let's say there was bad weather and we had to evacuate a building. So when I was a principal, a pipe broke and we had to evacuate that building because there was water everywhere. And we had to dismiss from another school. Well, we had already practiced reunification, so that was an easy process. So we just want to make sure that we're practicing that as well. As far as student services and programs, we have emotional support services at the elementary, middle school, and high school level. We have a positive behavior support plan, which is implemented at the elementary and middle school. We've implemented Too Good for Drugs at the middle school and high school. We've created and implemented a student threat assessment tool. So should a student pose a threat to self or others, there's a tool that we now use, and part of that tool is that students who are a high-level threat are immediately referred to the Scranton Counseling Center for a risk assessment. And the Scranton Counseling Center has done a wonderful job to make sure they get those students seen that day, and they are evaluated and assessed, and they may not return to school unless we get a clearance from a psychiatrist. We are implementing Gaggle, which is new to us. We just rolled this out in the spring, and basically it's a digital filter to alert administration of concerns with messages and searches. So should a student search or message their friends about a threat to self, a threat to others, a threat to the building, that message is stopped and sent to administrators, and then we start to have conversations. When we first deployed it, it was a challenge because students didn't recognize this and they were having conversations with each other, and a lot of times what they use is slang of like, oh, I'm just going to die. That was coming to us, where it was kind of like dramatic teenager talk, not necessarily a danger to self. I would say that has slowed down now that students recognize that we're tracking that. And now only true concerns are coming about. So we're really happy to see that being deployed. And then every year we do an annual climate survey, so we can gather a lot of information, but a lot of those questions we talk to students and parents and faculty and staff about, do they feel safe in school? What kind of challenges do they deal with, dealing with respect, or perhaps people being unkind or disrespectful to them for different reasons. For personnel under student services, we have school counselors. So at the elementary level, we have 4. We have 1 counselor at each building, and I just want to again thank the board for making that investment, because that really has supported our students appropriately. The middle school, again, has 4 counselors, and that's 1 per grade level, and the high school has 4, including a crisis counselor. We have social workers and crisis counselors. We are working on realigning their duties just so we make sure that all of our students are covered. So we have a crisis counselor, 1 will be K to 8 and 1 will be 9 to 12, and then a licensed social worker, which is 5 through 12. Our SRO, we are proud to say that we are working to, we have an SRO now, but we're working to gain another SRO. Sergeant Shazik has been incredibly supportive at the high school and has just years of experience and really has developed strong relationships with our students. So he hears about a lot of things beforehand, and it's very, very proactive. Safe to Say is something that sadly came out of Sandy Hook, and the parents of the victim of Sandy Hook helped to create an anonymous tip line, and that's the Safe to Say system. And basically, it's an anonymous reporting system from the Attorney General's office, and students can submit tips 24/7 via their website, a mobile app, or phone or email. And they do submit them 24/7 because I get all of them. So they are making good use of this, which is a good thing. And it's a collaborative intervention effort between the school, law enforcement, and county emergency services. So basically, if a student is concerned about one of their friends, they file a report through Safe to Say. It goes to the appropriate building administrators. If it is deemed an emergency threat, so if their friend has said, I'm going to harm myself, I have a plan, it rises to the level, and the local control center actually calls me, and then we're able to notify parents. So I've gotten Safe to Says at 1 in the morning and just managed it to make sure that students are safe. And it's great to know that our students are using this and they care about one another. This is just some brief data of middle school statistics. So there's 34 tips received. This was about, I pulled this data, I want to say about a week and a half ago. So it's 4 less than last year, and then you can kind of see how they're divvied up. These descriptors is what Safe to Say has, and it's what students choose. So even though some of the language in here might say one thing, it's not truly what it is. So like hate crime discrimination might be, he called me a bad name, but it might not be a racial slur or discrimination. It might have been like 4 eyes. So I just caution people from being concerned that there was a disorderly conduct because that's what the student is identifying. At the high school, we have 19 tips received, which is about 1 less. And again, this is how it is broken out. Recommendations for the upcoming school year regarding facilities. We're going to continue to engage in relevant drills and preparedness. We're going to expand our new cameras, our camera system, to make sure that we have cameras interior and exterior, and also those large communal areas. So we're slowly building a video surveillance system, which was a huge concern that came out of that risk and vulnerability assessment done by the state police. We will continue to work with law enforcement on those drills, including the reunification drills. We are rolling out the Raptor system, we're implementing the radios, and we will continue to address all of the concerns from the risk and vulnerability assessment. Recommendations for students and programming. Our comprehensive plan, which is due in October, is going to include PBIS programming for K to 12. We currently have it K to 8, and we would like to grow that program into the high school. We are working on aligning or realigning the supports for students at that Tier 3 level, so our students who have the most intensive levels of supports of mental health, of identifying what those supports are and how we can help students and families. We will have a parent workshop for digital safety, and that will be conducted by the HALO office of the Pennsylvania State Police. HALO office, for those of you who did not know, because I did not know, there are 5 HALO officers in the Pennsylvania State Police, and that is Heritage Affairs, and basically they deal with cybersecurity and hate crimes. And they met with us a few weeks ago, and basically we talked to them about what we're seeing with cyber issues or internet issues or safety, and then they are creating content for us to specifically address with parents. What they're going to do, it's different than last year's, is they want students to come with them, and the students and the parents are going to sit next to each other, and the parents are going to take the student's phone, and the HALO officers are going to teach the parents, like, this is a decoy app. It might say calculator, but it's actually access to some sort of social media account. And they're going to just run through that and have the parents practice that experience. So we're really excited to offer that in the fall. We're going to more clearly outline our student code of conduct, which is in our handbooks, to express what the expected student behaviors are. We're going to hire an SRO for the middle school, and that person will be housed at the middle school, but will also cover Newton Ransom. And we'll continue to work with local law enforcement relating to all student concerns. And that is my presentation. Questions, concerns, or thoughts?
Could you go back to the safe to play slide? I was looking at the bus. Is there a fair amount of bus issues? I think it was the next one you just had on this. Inappropriate bus behavior. Are you seeing an uptick on behavioral issues on the buses?
I don't have that data to be able to answer that, of how our discipline data goes by location.
Because I know we put in, all buses had to have cameras. I was just wondering how effective those cameras are.
Those cameras are incredibly effective to help students recognize and visualize what their behaviors were, and to identify exactly what those behaviors were, should a child not be remembering correctly what their behaviors were on the school bus.
Okay, so now you have cameras in the buildings, right?
We're working on that as well. So we installed cameras into the cafeteria of the middle school, and Mr. Hanyon and Mr. Evans will tell you it changed their life. And we have seen a decrease anecdotally in behaviors in the cafeteria. Mrs. Henderson.
So I think the parent workshop is absolutely a fantastic idea. I went to the one last year for digital safety. I know this would take a little extra planning on our part, but is there any way we could couple that workshop for parents with something that we're doing to get the parents to the building, like kind of couple it with another activity? Just so it's not one more thing, but it's almost, it's a book fair or something else, just to kind of maybe capture a larger crowd of people. And historically, I know we put all this time in planning it, and then we only have like a handful of parents. And I think, as a mom of 3 kids, it's social media and phones, but that's the biggest important attention. Whether it be curriculum or some way to, something that we're already doing.
Yes.
Has good attendance.
So we're working on that, but again, there's only 5 HALO officers in the entire state of Pennsylvania. So their availability, we have to be really respectful of their calendar as well. And as administrators, we're really looking at a good time and how to draw parents in. So yes, we're trying to figure out how to get a better draw. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Robson.
Yeah, Dr. Vitale, so you talked about the climate survey results, and I think the last time I recall seeing them was maybe a year or two ago.
Last year.
Last year? When does that come out? Because that would be interesting to see.
So we did it. I have the preliminary results. All I did was data this week, right, Dr. Schaefer? So I went through the student, the parent, and the teacher survey, and I updated all of the information in the spreadsheet and then created kind of a comparison from last year, because last year was the first year that we did it, to this year. And I want to say within one of the upcoming board meetings, we're going to roll out what that information was. The results were really, really exciting to see that what we're doing is having a positive impact on all three stakeholder groups.
That's good, because I think when we did it initially, we were surprised in some of the areas. So it'll be interesting to see. And we invested in some interventions to improve that, so it'll be nice. Not urgent, but I'm glad it's on the agenda.
Absolutely. Any other questions or thoughts?
Dr. Vitale, very nice job. Thank you very much. We'll now, I'm sorry, Greg.
Mr. Medinsky?
Gaggle, is that, how does that work? I mean, it's like, if I text something, just gaggle?
So
Is that there?
anything that is done on our device,
On our device?
or in our email system. So if I'm emailing on my phone and I'm emailing Mr. Mirabelli and it has some significant profanities and perhaps a weapon word. So there's keywords that then alerts to Gaggle, and then somebody at Gaggle reviews it and determines what level it is. Is this an immediate threat? And then it gets sent to the appropriate administrator.
So if I have my phone and I'm using our Wi-Fi here, it picks that up?
Not our Wi-Fi, only our devices and our Google platform,
Understand.
which is what we're finding is that students create like a Google Doc, and they talk to each other through that doc, and sometimes, we had a 152 slide deck slide that students were talking to each other the other day at. Mr. Fleming?
I've got to, first of all, commend the administration on all the things that you're doing. It's great to see. I'm curious whether you're keeping metrics. How do you know if what you're doing is actually improving things? Is it only through the climate survey, or are there other?
I would say we're looking at discipline data as well. Every school has a PBIS team, which looks at their monthly and annual discipline data to see if there's an impact. The Safe to Say data is really, really interesting just to compare of what's being reported to what's not. And last year, there were several false reports, and that really stopped this year. There were a lot less. So I would say that our students are taking it more seriously. So that is showing us that students are a little bit more responsible about it. So a lot of it is anecdotal, but I would say the climate survey and the discipline data are two big deals for us.
And can we see that data when
Sure.
you get it together?
Absolutely. So the climate survey is coming. The discipline data lives at the building levels, but I can put something together based on their information. Absolutely.
Anything else? Again, thank you very much. Very interesting. I just want to make sure everyone knows this survey, complete presentation will be on the website.
It already is. It's on the board
So
agenda.
if someone wants to go back and review this, I think we often get comments from the public saying, well, what are you doing about safety and so on, and this is a great resource to.
Thank you.
Okay, the next part of our meeting is for public comment. We ask that if there's anyone that wants to make some public comments to approach the podium, state your name and address, and we welcome you.
Hi, I'm Maeve Walsh. I just finished my freshman year at Abington, and I came here to speak today on behalf of my entire social studies class. We had a teacher this year named Mr. Ryan McGavin. He was our long-term sub, but I came to recommend him as a full-time teacher, and as a student who has been fortunate enough to experience his teaching firsthand this year, I'm really confident that in this school year alone, He has made a massive impact on my education and the education of many others. He consistently demonstrates a commitment to his students' success, and his teaching method is both engaging and effective. He really captured the attention of students. He ensured a deep understanding of the learning material, and he really had a unique ability to turn complex concepts into relatable and digestible lessons. What set Mr. McGavin apart from other teachers is his genuine passion for student growth, and that he really made the learning environment feel inclusive. He kept the material really realistic, and he taught real-world examples and had lively discussions with the whole class that made all of our opinions and thoughts feel valid. He treated us with respect, and he didn't push new material onto us until we were all fully comfortable with the current material. He always went out of his way to connect with every student on a personal level, and I've personally seen him going above and beyond while providing guidance, support, and mentorship to any student who needed it. His belief in all of our potential this year gave many people more self-confidence. With this, I strongly encourage the board to consider him as a full-time social studies teacher. His passion for education and his ability to connect with the students are truly deserving of a permanent position, and providing him the opportunity to continue his valuable contributions will ensure the growth and success of future students. Thank you for taking the time to consider my request, and I'm confident that hiring Mr. McGavin, future Abingtonite students will continue to benefit from his teaching the way that me and all my classmates did this year, beyond the classroom walls. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maeve, it's fair to say that you like Mr. McGavin. Is that accurate? It is? Scale of 1 to 10, what would you give him? 11.
Oh, wow.
That's crazy. Maeve, this is the time where the superintendent tells you they don't comment on personnel, and we don't. What I can tell you is we have a lot of great long-term subs, and we hope that students like you speak up, because when I walk in the room, I see one thing, and I know it's a little different from the student perspective. So I really appreciate that feedback. And when we know that we have got an excellent person, we do our very best to keep that person. And on a personal note, I can tell you that prior to coming here, I was a principal in a high school that was not at all like Abington Heights High School, and was challenging on all days. And Mr. McGavin was my social studies teacher on the second floor. So I know Mr. McGavin, and I know his work, and I know what he meant to the students in the school district of Philadelphia, and it's great to hear what he means to the students at Abington Heights. So thank you very much, and you can relate my thanks to your whole entire class. Right, and you can punch Mr. McGavin in the arm for me.
Thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Schaefer, on to our action and discussion items.
All right. At this time, I'd ask the board to approve the personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Budensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, sorry. And Mr. Acker? Did I-
Yes.
Did I get Mr. Fleming? Okay. 9 yes. Paper is a lot easier.
That's right. I had a good math joke, but I'm not going to say it now. Mr. I got to ask the board to consider a motion to approve an additional ESY support staff position.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Budensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
9 yes.
There was 9. Thank you.
Mr. Ackert asks that the board consider a a motion to approve the Scranton School for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Children for the 2023 extended school year letter of understanding for the Abington Heights student to attend ESY.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
and Mr. Acker.
Yes.
I think that's 9.
Mr. Acker, I'd ask the board to consider a motion to approve the master services agreement with CoPay for procurement card payment processing services.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Robson.
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah.
Yes.
Mr. Azar.
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
and Mr. Acker.
Yes.
9 yes.
Mr. Acker, I'd ask the board consider a motion to approve the Women Empowerment Club student activity account.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion?
What is this about?
Empowerment Club.
Is there a description?
Just so you know, you're sitting between two type A women. Be very careful what you say. You might not live through the afternoon. Just saying.
Yeah, right.
If you do is read the title.
Yeah. These are student-created clubs, which is exactly what we want for our kids to take the leadership and do that. And Dr. Pryl would be the advisor for this club.
I'm almost afraid to ask if there are any other comments. Mr. Abdallah, please. No, I'm good. Oh, come on, Mr. Abdallah. Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Mr. Robson,
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney,
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah,
Yes.
Mr. Azar,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Karam,
Yes.
Mr. Medensky,
Yes.
Mr. Acker.
Yes.
9 yes.
Very good.
Mr. Acker, make sure I don't miss it, I'm sorry about that. This time I'd ask the board to consider a motion to approve the high school math curriculum.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion?
Just a comment on this. Really good job on this. I mean, just flat out good job. Both with the curriculum committee, the communication along the way, and the depth and breadth of what you covered. Just really good job.
I just want to highlight that Mr. Preachy led this with his department and did an amazing job, but we really could not have done this without every single high school teacher who teaches math having input and spending time. So this is really the fruit of everyone's labor, and it's a great, I guess, it's a great way to show how collaborative and invested our teachers are in our school district to write this curriculum.
Couple questions. The algebra section in the very beginning, the first year, is that all for incoming freshmen, or will most of these classes be taught in the 8th grade before freshman year?
So we've already approved K-8 math curriculum. So Algebra Foundations is for students who, coming into 9th grade, we do not believe that they are ready for Algebra 1. So this is a course that really goes over a lot of the standards that have been taught 5th through 8th grade to get students prepared and ready to take Algebra 1 their sophomore year.
And then the geometry. I noticed that there are 2 added levels, or is there 1 added level in the geometry? You have an accelerated, then you have a honors program, and then you have an AP program. Is that accelerated program, is that new?
You're saying we have an AP, Geometry?
Yeah, accelerated curriculum.
So we have,
May
so if you were going from, it would be honors, accelerated, and then just geometry. So geometry would be, in English, what we would call a level 3, accelerated would be a level 2, and the honors would be the level 1 section.
So what's the geometry curriculum?
So that is the level 3
Oh,
class.
that is the level 3, okay. And so if you're not quite honors, you are in the accelerated, is that right? Okay, thank you, Maggie. All right, yep, got it. Congratulations, this is great. This is a great opportunity for our students in our math program.
Mrs. Henderson?
I just wanted to echo Mr. Whipson and Dr. Vitale, just a tremendous job on behalf of Mr. Gricci and Dr. Vitale and the Math Guiding Committee. I mean, we were blown away when we looked at the K through 8, and then even just looking at the offerings that we have for the high school students. It's remarkable, and I think you said tapping into and working with the teachers at the high school level just really speaks to the talent that we have within our schools. So, thank you. Well done.
Again, nice job. I think, thank you very much. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Ropin?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson? And Mr. Acker?
Yes.
9 yes.
Mr. Acker, I'd ask that the board consider a motion to approve the Director of Business and Student Services job description.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
9 yes.
Mr. Acker, I'd ask that the board consider a motion to approve the IUP, Indiana University of Pennsylvania Educator and Clinician Preparation Field Experience Agreement.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
9 yes.
Is there any additional information or new business?
Just two, one information, one new business. One is, we do have our technology committee meeting next week at 6:30. If you recall, we moved our meetings to every other month, and so we're due for, and I think that's June, that would be June 14th at 6:30 here. And then for new business, I did have a question about the field trips in the middle school. So it seems to me that, and I heard from different constituents, parents, and even students, about there seems to be some discrepancy across the different grades. For example, I think 5th grade went to Knoebels, 6th grade went to Hershey, 8th grade went to DC, which is fantastic, and option for State Park. And then the 7th grade is having their field trip tomorrow, I think, at the State Park, which seems a little odd to have a field trip before, the day before school's out. And also, it doesn't seem commensurate with what the other groups were doing. So I asked around, and they said that they did plan to go to a park, but there was a decision from administration to not do that. And so they had to pre-plan. Now, this is just input from constituents. And I was wondering, is there consistency across, first of all, is that true? Second of all, is there consistency across the grades with, having an end-of-year trip that's timely and equal across all grades? I would take 8th grade out because it's a final grade and it's a big, it's a big trip, which is good. That's all, and I didn't bring this, I think it should be to the public, not an executive session. So that's why I bring it up. And maybe prepare for the future to be a little more equal. Thanks.
So we have certainly seen a discrepancy, as you have in the field trips. 7th grade decided not to do a specific amusement park because those students had already been to those amusement parks in previous years. So they spent, I want to say, months looking for different options and dates that would work based around different dates that are already in our schedule. And then we struggled finding a location. We found a really good location that they were excited about, but then we struggled to find transportation. There weren't enough charter buses to take the students there, and we couldn't bus them. So 7th grade worked for months, those teachers, to find a location and could not. And I know that there was a significant amount of parents that were concerned, and we spoke to them and kind of identified it wasn't an intentional that 7th grade teachers didn't want to have students have an amazing experience. It truly was that we struggled to find a location that could house 300 students that would be engaging, but also how would we transport them. So with all of that being said, next year there will be a very streamlined field trip process and approval process. So right now, teachers fill out a transportation approval process, not a field trip approval process. So if they want to go on a field trip, it goes to transportation. Now it's going to come to me first. I'm going to look and see what the field trip is, make sure that it's consistent with what we're doing across the district, that there's a curriculum connection, and then I will approve it, and then we will go forward with transportation, and that will help me make sure that there is consistency. So we did this at the elementary level my first year here to make sure like everybody in 2nd grade has the same experience across the 4 elementary schools. Now we just need to do it district-wide because we've identified that as a concern.
I want to congratulate our music department. Last Sunday, the music department, the orchestra, the concert band, concert choir, and the marching band had an incredible performance, and they had a senior recognition on the field. It was a spectacular night. The sound was fabulous. The sound system and the lights were also excellent, and everything really was a beautiful night for the music department. So I just wanted to congratulate the music department, the faculty, the orchestra, and the band. It was just great. And the marching band was great on the field, so hats off to our music department.
The talent.
The talent was spectacular. The voices, the violins, the string instruments, it was a class act.
I will say, it brought me to tears.
Me too.
Every at least one performance in each of those groups, it just was so good. They had a great time. The kids have a great time, and the talent is just amazing.
I just want to put a shout out for our student representative, Aiden Lamb, who did an incredible piano solo that was just spectacular. So hats off to him. So.
Across the board, there was great music all over.
Mrs. Anderson.
I'm going to jump back on the field trip form, or the field trip train. I had the pleasure of attending the 8th grade field trip to Washington, D.C. There's not enough good things I can say about this trip. You know, it serves the 8th graders learn about World War I in wit and wisdom. They also spend the year in social studies learning about American government and civics. It's a great way for them to end 8th grade, but it also touches on a lot of the things that they've learned throughout elementary school. It helps set the stage for things that they'll be learning in the high school. It was remarkable. And 2 things kept kind of bouncing in my head. You know, our vision, students are the focus and excellence is a standard, because I think everything about this trip truly spoke to that. And also Comet Pride. I mean, our students, not only did they stand out because of the pink shirts that they wore the one day, but the behavior was just remarkable. When you hear that you're going to take 260-some kids to Washington, D.C. on an overnight trip, when I read the agenda, I kind of broke into a cold sweat. I was like, there's no way we're going to do all this. But they were remarkable, and I kind of became the butt of a joke where Henderson, you're always sick of booths. Why is your group the last group? Well, one of the girls in my group made sure whenever we were at a museum, she would stop and she would thank anyone that worked there, and she would seek them out to thank them and just to say how much something meant to her. You know, we were in the Capitol and she said, oh, I loved the ceiling, the mythological creatures. We learned about that. And, And, you know, and I was like, I'm fine with being the butt of the joke, because that's why, like, you know, our students were so remarkably well-behaved. We ended up seeing depending on what group you were in, we saw between 16 and 18 different landmarks. And it truly was a well-oiled machine. We would not have been able to do it without the efforts of our 8th grade teachers, especially Mr. Boyland, who does most of the planning, from what I understand. He puts a ton of time in. Teachers, it was phenomenal. I think the students, in addition to the learning aspect, I think they are able to see their teachers in a different light. They have a different level of respect. I had parents tell me that this trip would have never been possible if they didn't go through the school. I had a single mom say that because of the fundraising that we planned for, she was able to go with her daughter, and she was in tears, and she said, I would never have been able to stay in a hotel with my daughter. We had kids say that they had never stayed in a hotel before. I just think it's a remarkable experience for our students, and it's something that I hope, you know, it's been a long-standing tradition, and I hope it's something that, you know, we continue to do. I'd be remiss not to mention the middle school PTA, their efforts. Mrs. Bloom helps them plan fundraising to pay for the buses, meal vouchers, T-shirts, and financial aid for students who cannot afford to go on the trip. They also plan individual fundraisers where students have the option to sell Manning's gift certificates and gift certificates for Hooked. One mom said that she only paid $26 for the trip because, you know, it's kind of like what you put into it is what you get back. So, you know, I think if you ask most 8th graders, they would tell you that is by far the best experience in their middle school career. So I just want to applaud everyone that made this trip possible, and I hope it's something that that will remain and something that we'll continue to do in the future. So
I think it was its 18th year.
it was just amazing. I slept for like 2 days. Still sleep deprived, but no, it was phenomenal. So
I have a lot of friends that have kids that are in 8th grade for obvious reasons. I coach and I have a kid in 8th grade, and I can't tell you how many parents came up to me and said how fantastic that trip is. And I'm glad to hear Dr. Vitale say that you're going to take a look at like the consistency of these trips and that they're going to be tied to curriculum. You know, it's nice to go to Dorney, but like there's a lot of things, like the 8th grade trip is a big deal, it's an overnight, but like 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, like, and I think we used to go to Gettysburg, like there's lots of great single-day drive trips that we could be sending these kids to consistently every year instead of like changing it every year. But that 8th grade trip is really, it's fantastic that we're able to do it.
There also used to be a traditional 7th grade camping outing, and it was, well, Mr. Hugler was really a huge part of it, but it was an overnight camping at, I know for 7th graders at camp, I want to say.
Dr. Vitale just
Brooks,
offered to chair.
one of the camps, and it was an incredible learning experience.
Ms. Tierney has volunteered to be
I would
a
love
camper,
to. I would
making
love to.
s'mores, open fire.
I would love to.
Sure.
But it was a great 7th grade. It was that 7th grade opportunity, yeah, so they enjoyed that too. I didn't hear you, Warren.
Did I, Mr. Rowley, did I see you raise your hand?
No, I chaperoned that trip twice, by the way. They asked me to go back a second time.
They asked you twice?
Just not a third.
I'm wondering about the vote for.
I do have one more thing.
Please.
I did have several parents reach out regarding our evening events that happen at night, mainly concerts, the conflicts that are happening at the middle school and elementary level. I know that there's only so many nights, only so many days in a week, and this is kind of a problem at the holidays, mainly when we have our middle school and high school concerts. And in the spring, I know a lot of parents said that they were torn. We had 4th grade violin concert the same night as some of the middle school concerts. I don't know how to mitigate that. I think in the past we did have designated nights. I believe like Monday, Tuesday was elementary, Wednesday, Thursday was middle, Friday, Saturday, Sunday was high school. If there's just a way that maybe we can look at the schedule so that we don't have the conflicts. I know when you spend months and months preparing for, your course concert, you want to look out into the audience and see a parent or guardian, and it's hard for parents to be split. There's oftentimes where it's the same exact time but 2 different places. So that's something I've had many parents reach out, and so I just wanted to see if there's something that we can do for next year to help with some of those conflicts.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, also with the athletic world and the academic world, because last year there was a cross-country, some type of a cross-country event, I think it was districts, and it was the same night as National Honor Society, and half the kids had to miss. So, yeah, so if we could coordinate our schedules, because a lot of, there's things that we can coordinate here with the district that you can't with PIAA or with outside entities. So that's a very good point. Thank you.
Any other new business or thoughts? In that case, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you all. Thank you all for attending. Craig, it's very nice to see you.